Hi guys! So this video is going with our Alice in Wonderland section that we were reading in our white workbooks for 6th grade. So we read part of Alice in Wonderland, just a couple pages worth. This is the actual Alice in Wonderland book. And if you haven't noticed already, and if you have maybe seen the movie or heard other things about Alice in Wonderland, it's all kind of silly and made up. And it's all about imagination, which is the topic of our whole unit, imagination. But this is a good example because there's all sorts of silly drawings and characters and things that they do, right? Like following a rabbit that talks and falling down a giant well and seeing all these things inside of it and meeting all these strange characters. It's not something that happens in regular old life, right? Like if we were in the Kingdom of Wisdom, that probably wouldn't happen. So an example of some really cool English stuff that happens in Alice in Wonderland, other than made up words and funny people, is that Lewis Carroll did some neat things with his writing. And so one thing he did, he used shape poetry. So we're going to talk about shape poetry today. This is one example, and it's from Alice in Wonderland. So I'm going to show you in the actual book. This is a shape poem, and it's called The Mouse's Tail. And so see how it looks like the mouse's tail? If a mouse had a really long, really curly tail, instead of just writing out the poem, like here's one line, here's the next line, here's the next line, they decided to make it in the shape of whatever the poem is about. So this particular poem, I pulled it up on the big whiteboard too, and I will try and zoom in. Works. I'll try and kind of go with it as it goes. It says, "Mine is a long and sad tale," said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. "It is a long tale, certainly," said Alice, looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail. "But why do you call it sad?" And she kept on puzzling about it while the mouse was speaking, so that her idea of the tale was something like this. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, "Let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, I'll take no denial. We must have the trial, for really this morning I've nothing to do," said the mouse to the cur. "Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge, would be wasting our breath. I'll be judge, I'll be jury," said cunning old Fury. "I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death." So, instead of just writing it out, he's telling the story about what's going on, and he's saying that fury, right? Fury is like anger. And so that's a sad tale when he's dealing with anger and when he's puzzling out silly kind of issues like that, right? So in the story, he doesn't just write out stories. He adds all sorts of interesting, wonderful things. And we are not going to read the whole story. But your job is that you are going to make your own shape poetry. So in that document that you got this video from, I gave you a whole bunch of examples. Like there's one of a clock, there's one of a rabbit, there's one of a hat. And those are themes that we haven't necessarily read about yet because we haven't read the entire book. But I bet you guys could make your own shape. You could make a shape of a girl, right? Like a stick person with a dress. That could be Alice. And you could write about Alice. You could make a clock, right? Because the rabbit was looking at his watch and saying, "Oh no, I'm late." You could make a rabbit. You could make a jar of marmalade. You could make a key or a really small door. And your job is to make a poem about that part of the story. So they give you some example poems in that document, and I'm not going to write a whole example up here. But I would like you to write your poem and then figure out how you're going to draw it in that shape, and then take a picture of the poem once it's in its shape and send it to me. You can either upload it to Edmodo, you can send it to me as an email,